Hey, this is Glendon Cameron with the American Hustler Podcast. This one is going to be on the theme that I've talked about for the last few years, but I'm going to really get a little deep into it. This came because of a Facebook post from a Facebook friend, and she was talking about how her husband did not feel smart because he didn't have a college degree. And I looked at that and I realized that many people feel that way. Many people feel that way. Let me relay something to you that happened to me like 15 years ago, 16 years ago. I was an exhibitor at a trade show, and the president of the company, Michael Shanley, was there, who was a really ultra intelligent guy, and he was a Brit. And we were there, and we're just talking about life. And one thing I would give Shanley credit on, he let you speak your mind. He was not a sensitive type. He would let you speak your mind and discuss. I think he liked the engagement of just talking about things, concepts, and theories. And we were just talking about education, and he said these words. He said, most people who don't get a degree tend to regret it. And I thought about that, and just for full disclosure, I don't have a degree. I dropped out a long time ago. And I really thought about that because today, and this is 2013, and that conversation was like 16, 15 years ago, I still don't regret not finishing my degree. And I'm going to tell you why in a few minutes. And I pondered that. It's like, why don't I regret it? I actually damn near brag about it. It's like, yeah, I don't have a degree. And, in some circles, that people think, poor Glendon, he doesn't have a degree. He could probably be so much better if he had a degree. And I thought about it, because here's this woman and her husband who's very talented. He's an audiac. He can teach himself stuff. And, she's proud of him because she thinks he's incredibly smart. And the thing is, we live in a culture that people do not break things down. When you say education, the de facto mindset is a college degree, a master's degree, or a doctorate, or a JD, or an MD. That is considered smart. And I look at it, and it's what I call educational classism. And what's really, really funny about this, and this is something that I talked about in my degree myth video, is people who are really smart don't need degrees to have a fulfilling and profitable life. The more average that you are, the more that you need a degree. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. The more average that you are, the more that you need a degree. And let's extrapolate this a little further. Colleges are more of a connector of humanity than bastions of education that they once were. And there is no doubt in my mind, or anyone that's done the research, that for a long time, getting a degree was a path to a better lifestyle. It was true. It worked. And what happened after World War II and the GI Bill, there was a proliferation of GIs coming back. The government gave them the means to go to college through the GI Bill. Colleges just started exploding, and they started building and getting big. Because the thing is, a man could work a regular job and actually pay his way through college back in the day, being in the 40s and the 30s and the 20s. He could if he had the intellect and the ability to think. Understand that. And that was pretty much the case up until about 78, 70, people could do it. It was hard because people didn't earn that much money, but it was doable. It is incredibly hard to work and pay your way through school now. Damn near impossible unless you're going to a school that is really, really cheap. And I looked at that. So with this glut, you had what I call degree value compression. There were so many people that had a degree, it just got to a point now that, so what? And then there's what I call bullshit degree factories. you got a degree in basket weaving. I mean, there's people walking around with that shit. You've got a degree in something that is great in theory, but gives you no skills to actually do anything out here in the real world. In my mind, that shit's worthless. But it's a degree. You worked hard. You earned it. You are somebody. So what if you are damn near destitute, living in poverty, don't have a car, don't have a job? If you have a job, it cannot pay for the bare necessities, but you have a degree. And it hit me when I looked at the comment and I looked at why I don't regret it, nor do I feel some kind of way about it, is I've been successful. Success heals a lot of wounds. Success puts icing on the cake. Success builds the cake. Success builds the cake that the box that the cake came in. Success is a wonderful ointment for many woes of the human condition. And I look back and I was like, okay, why was I successful and I don't have a degree? And I thought about it. And I had this discussion with someone recently. I was the product of a result-based educational system. Before this no child is left behind bullshit, I grew up in an educational system where if you didn't get the lesson, you failed. If you didn't make the grade, you failed. If you didn't do what was required of you, you failed. I know people that were left back 1 or 2 grades, and it was extremely embarrassing and humiliating. I saw what happened to those kids, and I said, that's not going to be me. Truth be told, my senior year, I didn't really do too much because I had accumulated enough credits to graduate by my junior year, except for maybe 1 or 2. I wasn't going to be one of those guys. And I also, want you to think about this, went through a school system with a lot of men that were teachers. From elementary school, junior high school, I had many male teachers. Mr. Bonner, Mr. Roberts. There was a lot of misters in my educational experience. A ton of them. And I know you're going, like, what does that mean? So what? You had male teachers. I had men that demonstrated that it was cool to be smart. It was cool to gain knowledge. It was cool to be an educated person. And when I say an educated person, that is a person that picks up a book, goes traveling, picks up experiences. You can educate yourself. Many people go the route of school or college, but you can educate yourself to a great many things. So I saw a lot of men that appreciated education, learning, reading, knowledge seeking. So let's look at that. I had these men who were seekers of knowledge, and they were all around me. And I also had an educational system that was saying, if you did not get it, we're going to leave your lackluster ass behind. It produced accountability. So I got 2 things that a lot of guys aren't getting, because guys, even with the college degree myth, guys are not going to school. Guys are dropping out because the educational system is tracked and designed for women. So it's not really that favorable to a lot of guys. If you want to get a lot of pussy as a man, go to college. You won't have a lot of competition. And the reason is, unless you are a big reader, or as another friend and I was discussing, an early reader. And this is something that's very, very pivotal. And I didn't really realize it. My grandmother taught me to read before I went to school. Now understand, I am dyslexic and I have a speech impediment. So due to the grace of my grandmother, I never got behind because I was already ahead of the other kids. When you look into the backgrounds of a Bill Gates or Mark Zuckerberg or these tech guys or other folks who are successful or Any guy that was you, a lot of times you will find out that there was someone in their family, not school, not college, that gave them the secret recipe, the ingredients, the keys, whatever. At an early age, someone said, hey, here's something. And they built on it over their lifetime and became successful. Because the reason that I'm hammering the point about reading, the stronger reader that you are at an earlier age, the easier and the better that you learn anything. It's about concepts. When I was growing up, there was this thing called the California Achievement Test. I always scored off the charts. And it wasn't because I was a genius. It was I was exposed to concepts in reading at a very early age. I'm telling you, if you go back into a lot of these guys who were very successful, at some point they became readers or seeker of knowledge, and they developed two things: the ability of concrete thought and the ability to focus. That's what reading does. That's what, I used to be able to read a book in a day. Didn't think anything was special because, people read. No one said, hey, how fast can you read this book? And later on, when I joined the book club as an adult, it was just like, oh yeah, I read. And I met other readers. And if, people who love books, who love knowledge, lifelong readers can read very fast frequently. I'm talking about a 200-page book in a day. Easy. I will say there's something different. And every now and then I read it, The Invisible Man, because it's 500 pages long. But it's my type. If it was at a higher font level, that book damn near be 800 pages, maybe 1,000 pages. So looking at that educational system that I came up in and all of the people before me came up in, you start to see some things. Because now we have schools that don't give out grades. It's just like you show up and you get participation points. What I'm saying is the reason that many people today, with a degree or without a degree, are not as successful as they want to be because they don't have to be accountable, or they don't know how to hold themselves accountable. That is the core issue of success. You have to have drive. You have to have accountability. You have to have a sense of urgency. It's not having a degree. And going back to the degree, what I was talking about, the connecting of people, Stanford had put out an article that they were distressed that people were getting into Stanford grad school and not going to class. And they're like, these people are paying 20, 30, 40 grand. I don't know what the cost of tuition is at Stanford. And they were like, they were going and getting into school to get into the alumni association. A lot of people figured out early on they didn't need to actually have the degree. They just needed to be there long enough to get into that network. Listen to what I'm telling you. Some smart people figured out they didn't have to get the degree. They needed the network. And the only way to get in the network was to actually take the GRE and get accepted to the grad school, Stanford grad school. And they were talking about it, it's like people were going strictly to the grad school to get into the alumni association so they could connect with certain people. Because I don't have a degree, but I know a lot of people that do, and I know how alumni associations work. If you present yourself very well, some people are so passionate about their school. If you just say, hey, I went so-and-so and they did, you're friends already. It opens doors. But let me say that again. It wasn't the actual attainment of the degree. It was just the shared experience of being there. I actually witnessed something happen in a restaurant. These two guys were talking and they went to the same school. And all of a sudden they start talking about shared experiences and everything. And that guy is a friend. That guy is closer to him than someone who may work in his office who sees him every day. So that has happened across the country for these higher level schools with a great deal of success in history. It's the network. It's not the degree. It's the network. If you don't know, back in the day, Ty Willingham, who was the unsuccessful coach of Notre Dame football, he got that job due to the fact of the network. And guess who helped him get that job? Condoleezza Rice. Because he was in that network. See, a lot of people hate on Condoleezza Rice, but people in the network, Because I look at the woman as being extremely accomplished. Hate her if you want to, whatever, say, for politics aside, she's connected like most of us will never, ever be. You can pick up the phone and give someone a 7-figure job or help someone get a 7-figure job by just saying, yeah, he's a good guy. Network. It's the network. It's not the degree. And that's what's happened with a lot of schools. Now, going back to why people feel low self-esteem because of not having a degree. I got into a conversation years ago because I understand money. Give you a quick math lesson. If you could get your hands on $5 million today, pure, taxes already paid, you got a straight $5 million cash. If you properly invest take $1 million, buy yourself a banging house, get yourself a Porsche if you want, Lamborghini, do whatever. But if you take 4 and put in a low yield, I'm talking 4 to 6% investment vehicle, because you can get that. You can get 4%, you can get 6%. Consistently, you can get 4 to 6%, even in today's environment. That is livable income for the rest of your life with the principal intact. Let's see, just quick math after capital gains taxes, that's like 120, probably like $90,000 a year for doing nothing but let your money earn interest, and $90,000 a year. And your house is paid for, your car's paid for, you got a little spending cash, and you get $90,000 a year, which is roughly like $7,500 or $8,000 a month, something like that. But about $75,000, $8,000 a month. That's just $5 million. And I was having this conversation with this guy, because this young man that got in the NFL, I forget his name, and he got this big contract, and he said he still needs to go to school so he can be successful. And I think he got like a $12 million. It was, at the time, it was really huge. $12 million, $15 million contract. And I said, he's already more financially successful than 99.8% of the people who walk on this globe will ever be, regardless of how many degrees they stack up. And he looked at me as if I was an idiot. And I saw this, and you see it all the time. It's like, hey, I promised my mom I'm going to get the degree, because of the degree myth and of the narrative. Shaq, or Dr. Shaq, I mean, it's an achievement. If that's what you want to do, it's cool. He has got the money. It's not going into debt to get these degrees. But he got them because he wanted them. He didn't have to get them because he needed them. He didn't need them. I don't know. It was rumored that Shaq invested his NBA salary and lived off his endorsement money, which is another sign that he was smart. So he didn't need the degree. See, and that's the thing. You have people saying, well, you're not an accomplished person or a smart person unless you have a degree. And then this brings us up to some things that I witnessed since 2006 up to now. I have met and known of a lot of people with degrees who do not have the ability of concrete thought, can't solve their problems, are living in substandard housing, driving a bullshit piece of a car. And I'm not knocking anyone that's in dire straits or is having a rough patch. What I'm saying is, if the attainment of a degree was all of that, why have so many people with the degree are living no better than the people who don't have one? I want you to think about that. There's a lot of people who are living the same as people who don't have a degree. And then you hear the argument that at some point it's going to work out. Me being the evolved human being I am knows that's bullshit. At some point you will have to make it work out. It's not going to work itself out on its own. It's never going to happen. So you have all of this talk, in essentially this recession, or you can really call it a depression, exposed the degree myth. Many people, nurses, teachers, laid off across the country. And whenever I say that, people's like, well, they need to come to my neck of, I'm like, you're missing the point. Based on the mythology of having a degree, that should have never happened anywhere, any part of the country. But it did. Police officers, firefighters, these are must-have members of our communities that we need were getting laid off. Response times were going up like crazy around the country in certain locales because they didn't have the money to employ the proper personnel. Many who had degrees. Do you hear what I'm saying? A degree is not an insulation from poverty anymore. It can be actually a fast drive, an accelerated rate to lifelong, slightly above poverty living. If you get in the wrong amount of student loan debt, because it's never going away. They changed the laws. You can't discharge it. It is with you for life. You got $80,000, $120,000 worth of student loan debt, and you have a an okay job. You kind of treading water for the rest of your life. When I was making the decision to become a business owner or to go back to school, I calculated it, and I had paper hanging on the wall, and I was crunching numbers, and I was doing time frames. This was when you had to really sometimes go to the library and pick up heavy books and do research because everything was not on the internet at that time. And still, to this day, everything is still not on the internet. And I had to go to the library and look at stuff and look at projections. I spent time and I made a decision not to go back to school and to get in the business world. I chose sales because I did the research. Degree or no degree, salesmen are the highest paid people in the world, around the world. Got into sales, got into business, learned some stuff. Within 2.6 months of that decision, I had my own business, my own legitimate real business for the first time. I had a lot of side businesses or small businesses or side hustles, but I had a business. And it happened because I had a plan. A plan and strategy are more important than a degree. Unless you have the desire to be in an occupation where you have to have a degree, that is become an attorney, that is become a doctor, that's to become a psychiatrist or an engineer, where you have to have the degree, I would say to you right now, don't get one. I would say if you want to be an architect, you know what you do? You sketch out buildings. You design buildings. You can teach yourself the techniques to use the AutoCAD. Then when you become really, really good and some company says, hey, we like you, we like your talent, do you know that you can get them to pay for your degree while you work for them and get paid? That's the smart way to do it. The dumb way is to not know what the fuck you want to do in life, go into someone's college, spend or mortgage level debt, don't know what you want to do, thinking, well, it's a degree, it's going to work out, it's going to get me something, or the old antiquated statement, something to fall back on, may end up biting you in the ass forever. Go out and try. Go out and build stuff. Go out and learn. Pick a book and try. Because this is the thing that I've noticed, especially with people who go to law school. They go ahead and get that JD, and I think the fallout rate is like damn near 75%, which means that 75% of the people who get into law within 5 years are out of law. If that long, because they got it because it's prestigious. They don't really give a shit about law and learning about the first, the Declaration of Independence or no. They don't care a shit about that. They don't give a damn about that. It's just like it's a prestige job, and if you are in the top 10% and you can manage to get into one of the better law firms, it's a very high paying job. But they don't give a shit about it, and it is a hard job. One of the things about me is I've learned how to beat traffic tickets, and it took a great deal of research. And I'll admit it, when I'm looking at some of these legal statutes and stuff, I had to pick up another book that's like, what the hell did that mean? Because I had to read it, then find a legal dictionary to just say, okay, that's what that means, and put it into English so my mind could accept it and absorb it. And I learned some stuff that helped me beat tickets. While I watched people, and one time there was a lawyer in court, and he was trying to beat his ticket. He couldn't. I beat mine. And I'm going to tell you why. A lot of lawyers, because the law is so big and convoluted that you have to specialize. And I had more knowledge me, an undegreed person, than a lawyer because I knew what to look for and I spent a great deal of time studying it. Any attorney will tell you, hey, if you want to do this, you need to talk to a patent attorney, or you need to talk to a divorce attorney, or you need to talk to a contract attorney, because they know how complex and convoluted the law can be. So by focusing on what I needed to learn for my desires, I was smarter as a layman than an attorney who got his ass handed to him by a judge because he thought he was smart, but he didn't know the law. He didn't know that law. He knew some law. That's what, he was an attorney, but he didn't know that law. What I'm trying to put to you is, if you are feeling bad about yourself because you don't have a degree, you're looking at it from the wrong aspect. You should feel bad about yourself because you're not educating yourself on a daily basis. You're not reading hard books. You're not trying new experiences. You're not learning shit. That you should feel bad about, because in 2013, what you can teach yourself from the comfort of your home is staggering. Conundrum Publishing, I learned everything I knew about publishing from the internet. Conundrum Medium, Conundrum Media, I learned most of what I know about doing videos from the internet, and I've taken a few video courses, which were minuscule in cost compared to what I would have spent going to a community college to perhaps sit a few semesters to learn maybe the same thing. Smart people have the ability to think things out. Do not get stuck up on the degree narrative. If you feel that you have to have a degree, go to community college, do extremely well, then transfer to some big name university. So your name stamped on big university degree. It's the same thing. You're in the Alumni Association, you got the degree, and you didn't pay an arm and a leg, if that's what you want to do. Now, going forward, the attainment of knowledge, the ability to look at the world the way that it is, not the way that you want it to be, the ability to have concrete thought and really be able to contrive plans and strategies and execute are going to be more important than having a fancy piece of paper with your name on it. Because if you went to college and you did what a lot of people in college do, cheated, took cliff notes, if that's what it's called, took shortcuts, did everything, and really didn't learn shit, because the educational system that we lived in now, which is so radically different than the one that I came up through, is about passing tests. It's not about learning shit. That is why people of means who have money have their kids in private schools. Because the public educational system at large is about passing tests. It's not about learning. I had some wonderful teachers in public education. I had teachers that were wonderful, that were creative, that challenged us and cared about teaching kids. That's who I had. It's like, I remember when Ronald Reagan was being elected, our social studies teacher says, hey, we got this election. He brought the TV in. We watched the whole process. He just took us through it. He was happy to teach us that stuff. We actually participated in the political process as it was happening. And, I remember that to this day. Because I was taught to think. I was challenged. Now, what's going on today with this, what I call education classism, is I have a degree, I'm better than you. I will share with you this experience. I was dating this person years and years ago, and she had 2 degrees, undergrad and master's. We were at her place, which was in the hood, because that's all she could afford. And she was breaking up with me because she needed a man with a degree. I'm not knocking her for that. If that's what your heart desires, that's what your heart desires. What I did knock her for was this person who was telling me she needed a man with a degree. I had more money in my pocket than what was her total net worth. And if I sat down and asked her what her net worth was, she wouldn't know because she did not have financial literacy. I had $2,500 in my pocket, which was greater than her net worth because she was breaking up with me. But in my mind, I had decided that she was only going to be pussy for me anyway, because she had roughly $128,000 in student loans, other credit card debt, a job that paid, I think, $32,000, $35,000 a year at the time, attitude, and was poor as shit. I, on the other hand, had net worth, a great income, did not live in the hood, and was growing as a person. And this is another thing that happens with some people with degrees. They stop learning. They stop picking up books. They stop challenging themselves. They stop absorbing knowledge. When you graduate, they call it commencement because it's just the beginning. It's not the end. It's the beginning. So I look at that, and I saw her a few years ago, and her situation is worse. And she saw me, and I saw her, and hey, how you doing? How you doing? And I was actually in the big truck. This was still when I had the storage structure business. And he's like, yeah, what are you doing? I said, yeah, I own this store. Oh, you own the store. What are you doing? Same job. And at 2 and 3 and 4% merit increases per year, she might have not. She wasn't even past 40,000. She looked haggard. She looked despondent. She didn't look happy. Me, I was living the life. It's like, yeah, I just came back from France. What you doing? And it taught me something, because I want you to listen to this. And if you don't hear anything else in this podcast, I want you to hear this. True success, and true success is what you define as success for you, will heal so many wounds it would make you dizzy and giddy with joy. Because it came to a point where I don't hate people. People have done things that were wrong to me. People that said shit to me. I have learned that in time, if you are consistent, you're true to yourself, and you're seeking true success. And true success is what success is to you. When you encounter someone that pissed on your parade years later, and you see that they're in the same place and they ain't happy, or they're looking haggard, you feel pity for them because you're an evolved person. You're so past all that patty crap, you could just life is good. And I will tell you, if you continue to push, if you continue to build, you continue to evolve, and you continue to live a good life, these experiences will happen to you. I will share something with you that is crass, that is tawdry, and I used to do it. There was this rapper by the name of Mike Jones. He had this little fancy song. It's like, when I was down and out, you didn't want me. Now I'm hot, y'all on me. Something like that. Every time a chick from my past that tried to inbox me on Facebook or pop up in the store, I would throw that up on my Facebook page. Mike Jones, a few people knew exactly what that meant. And I was putting that stuff up there on the regular. And then I grew up a little bit. And I was like, I stopped doing it because it wasn't worth it. As I said, life is about continuing to learn. And when we say educated person, many people, once again, go to the de facto of having a college degree. There is emotional education. There is physical education. There is financial education. There is love education. There are so many ways that you can educate yourself and become a higher, evolved person and never, ever step foot in one of the fonder institutions of America, or the world for that matter. You can become an incredibly knowledgeable, wise, functional person by educating yourself. Reading 20 books a year will put you ahead of your crowd, because most people don't read. Most people don't expose themselves to new concepts. They don't do it. Educational classism will limit you because if you say anything that's full of fuckery like this, well, I'll be somebody when I have a degree. I'll be smart when I have a degree. What you're doing is allowing other people to define your happiness and success. For a long time, the richest man in the world didn't have a degree. And I'm going to discuss him in a minute because I don't know if Bill Gates or Carlos Slim is one of them. I don't know his background. But I know a lot about Bill Gates. Bill Gates went to an exceptional private school. Going back to what I said earlier about that foundation. His private high school, in my opinion, was better than many colleges. Because it was about learning. It was about new concepts. So understand, regardless of how old you are, you can still learn. You can still improve, and you can still have the life that you want. But if you subscribe to educational classism, that the only way that you're a good person is that somewhere, somehow, there's this thing that has your name on it that says bachelorette or this or that, you are missing the boat. You are actually missing out on a lot of happiness. There are many people that allow educational classism to hold them back. They feel because they don't have that piece of paper or that college experience that they somehow haven't had the life. I used to kind of feel that way because when I went to the military for about 3 years, my mother was legally blind and I was the sole source of income for my family. So I didn't really have the funds to do a lot of stuff that other people did because I had responsibilities. And I was going to school, I was in the military, and I was just working. And I didn't really have that experience of hanging out and so on and so forth. There are many people who feel that they're going to die if they don't have that experience. They're going to feel that their life isn't validated because they didn't have that experience. This is what I see. When you create a life of intent, purpose, and design, you can have greater experiences. When I was in the storage auction business, my Mondays were truly like Christmas. Every week we were opening up boxes and was just like, wow, look at this. Oh God, this is a Winchester 3030. Oh, is that a diamond? Well, look, it's some gold Cougarans. I got such an experience, a life experience from being in the storage auction business that very few people, degree or not, could ever compare with. I got to learn about sociology. I got to learn about people. I bought a few units of some ex-girlfriends and actually answered some clues to why we didn't make it. I got so many gifts for starting that business that will last me a lifetime. That would have never happened in college. I would say if I finished college and stayed there or had the college experience, I would have got some different kind of experiences, such as hanging out and, developing some lifelong friendships. That happens and that's important too. But those things kind of pale in comparison when your ass is broke. That stuff's not so important when you can't do shit because you don't have any money, or you're about to have your home foreclosed on, or the student loan people have taken your car. Stuff's not really relevant at that point. There was an article of a guy that did some alternative things because he had a high-paying job, graduated, and he paid his student loan debt of $70,000 off in maybe a year or so. He had roommates, part-time jobs. He did a lot of stuff, but he works where? In the financial industry, which means he's financially literate, and he understands that having that student loan debt forever is going to cost him. So he retired it rapidly because he understands money. He understands if he takes the time to pay off that student loan at this current interest rate, he's probably going to pay $210,000 back on the 70. But wait. Financial literacy time. He's going to pay more than the 210 because he borrowed the money at $70,000 at a different valuation rate of the dollar. The dollar, as we go along, is devalued. So it's going to take more devalued dollars to pay off that $70,000. When you adjust it for real-time inflation, loss of the dollar, he may spend 300 and something thousand to pay that loan back when you look at it from all proper financial aspects. If I had $70,000 worth of student loan debt with that looming over my head, I might not be able to sleep at night. But that's me. Because what happens is that's on top of your car note. That's on top of your mortgage or your rent. That's on top of everything. That's a lot of freaking money. And with the average person earning 1.1 to 1.6 million lifetime, and you pay 250 to 300,000 back on student loans. Oh, wait a minute, there's taxes. You're living your life on about 500, 600,000 lifetime. That's what you're living your life on. Which goes back to my earlier example of the NFL player and why I thought it was utterly ridiculous that he needed to go get a degree to be successful when he was financially more successful by signing that contract and getting that guaranteed money in a lump sum than 99.8% of the people on the planet. But when you don't understand money, when you have no financial education, you can't see that because all you see are the dollars and the cents are knocking you upside the head. So understand, when you're caught up in this thing and you're thinking, think harder. And another thing that I learned in this journey, and my journey is still going on. I look at it as a book, and each year there's a new chapter. Many people go out and get themselves in a crazy amount of student loan debt or even business debt with no life plan. There is your educational plan, there is your financial plan, and there is your life plan. If all of those things do not intersect at a axis of harmony, dissension, angst, and displeasure are the byproducts. Because I kind of backed into something good for me because my life plan wasn't together when I got in the storage auction business. But incidentally, when I was a kid, I wrote a goal to be able to get stuff at wholesale or other prices because I was poor, and I figured if I can get it at wholesale, I can get more with my meager dollars. And I wrote that down as a goal as a kid. So I get in the storage auction business, and that fulfills that goal that I wrote down. I was getting stuff at wholesale. Most of it used, but some of it new. And that brings me to another point. Most people, and I got this from Earl Nightingale in Lead the Field. I highly recommend that you get the audio course on CD. He put it out that most Americans do not have goals, whereas many immigrants do. Asians have the highest income per capita. Asians have the highest rate of business startups. And you look at people from the Caribbean or you look at Nigeria, they come here, they're starting businesses if they can. That's what they're doing because they realize that's a great opportunity. You may look at that little store that they have on the corner as that's just some little crappy store. But if you were to go back to where they came from and see that they were living in a rice paddy, they came up like a motherfucker. You don't understand. In our country, our poorest people in the hood, those folks in Chicago living in those war zones, are still living better than 80-something% of the world. You have people who are living in villages with no running water. Little kids are going down paths to the stream or the hydrant and going uphill to bring water for the family to drink that day. This is happening right now. That's when people are like, I'm leaving America. I got to get the fuck. I'm like, you haven't been anywhere. That's why you don't understand what you have by being here. Your frame of perspective is so jacked, you don't know. But I'm going off topic. That'll be another story, maybe on my other channel, Mr. Glendon Cameron, because that's a fuckery piece right there. But understand, do not let educational classism limit who you are. Pick up a book, start educating yourself. Read philosophy books. Do you understand that a lot of things that we see and do today came from things that happened thousands of years ago? Virtually every movie made is coming from some connotation of the Bible, earlier Bible tunes, the theme of, like, take Indiana Jones, seeking salvation. I mean, when you start to read about this stuff and look at how this stuff was created, Walt Disney was deep into the occult. You would start to be like, oh my God. A lot of the stuff that you see in movies, like when I was a kid and I was watching Warner Brothers and Bugs Bunny, and there was always these jokes about the mother-in-law. Those cartoons were not designed for kids. They were designed for adults. When you really look at what's happening and pick up these obscure books, when I was really deep into it, there was this website. It wasn't a website at the time. It was you got this catalog. It was called Lupanics, and they had all of this esoteric knowledge in these books and things that helped you to do stuff. That I ordered some stuff. Some of this stuff was so controversial, and it was awesome. Because when you start to learn, and you learn one thing, you're going to learn 10 other things. And it opens up your knowledge base, and you become more adept, and you just grow as a person. So do not let educational classism cloud your perspective. And I want you to think about this. And this is something that you can observe in your community right now. You have two people that managed to stay married, and they have a house that's paid for. And these people probably don't have a degree, or they may have a degree. And they didn't make as much money as their kids, but their kids are living with them. I want you to think about that. The landscape has changed. There are a lot of people who didn't make as much money as folks are making today, even adjusted for inflation, and their kids still are living at home with them. Because their kids, even with degrees, can't seem to figure this thing out. Lack of concrete thought skills, lack of critical thinking skills. That is the cause. Because if they really sat down and thought, they would have different actions. I left home at 18. I never went back. I was homeless for about 3 months, living in my car, taking showers in the gym. And it was a choice. My mother said, you could come home. I said, I can't come home. If I come home, I may never leave. That was my thought, because I was so depressed. I was so out there. I didn't seek a safe haven. And I went through a lot of bullshit over it. Best move I ever made. Best move I ever made. Because I was put in the position where I was forced to perform. Anytime that you're not forced to perform and you're not a person with that conscience, you're going to coast. And that's what a lot of people do in school. They coast through school. Once again, it's not the degree, it's the networks, it's the education, it's the skill sets. Last job I got before I started my business, the interview was very informal. God knew what I can do. We talked. I started work that next Monday. It wasn't no interview. There was no chase. There was none of that. When you develop skills that people want, you can get money. If you're finding yourself challenged to get the money that you want, you don't have the skills that you need. It's an education and skill set situation. Get the skills and you can get the money. You can spend the next 6 years in college and come out and be in fucking poverty. If you spent the next 6 years gaining several critical, in-demand skill sets, you will have no money problems. And you may never step foot into college. I want you to think about that. Because I put up that degree myth video and I have been vilified. I have had people talk about me. I had Facebook friends challenge my premise, and people try to justify what I said was as being as invalid. It was 2010, 2011. I forget when I put it up. Here it is in 2013. I could put that bad boy up on my page and people like, yep, you right, show you right. Yes, sir, preach. Because it's not just me saying it. It's Newsweek. It's the guy that started PayPal. It's a lot of people saying the same thing that I said a few years ago because the evidence is abundant. It's staggering. Which brings me to another point. When you're educated, and this isn't having a degree, but when you can think concretely, when you can weigh out things and you can look at the world the way it is, I took my education and made that video, and here it is a few years later, and people going, yes, sir, you were right. Because I didn't subscribe to what I call social narratives. Social narratives are these things put in place that make people feel wonderful and cozy, and they can be false and they can actually hurt you. I sat back and I just look at all people with degrees or almost a degree, and I'm looking at their lives. And then I have a friend who has most of his degree. He never finished it. I think he was a few credits shy. And he was married to a woman that had 2 degrees, and he made 3 times as much money as she did. And I'm just sitting there. So a degree, once again, does not equal a sure path out of poverty. Gaining skills. Now let's talk about something else on the poverty tip. If you didn't know, I am black, or, a chocolatey brown, as I like to say. With that, I grew up in a single parent household for the majority of my life. My grandmother lived with us before she passed, which was around 11, I think, 10 or 11. And then, half my life. Because I'm not going to say, my mother had help with my grandmother. But the gist is that if you grow up in a house and there's no father there, then typically you're going to be shit. You ain't going to turn out to shit because having a father there is going to be your precursor to success. And if you don't have a father there, you're going to have all of these bad woes. I am the most successful member of my family. I have pretty much avoided a lot of bad things that have plagued a lot of people. Why? It was a choice. It was a choice. Just because you don't have a father in the home, say you have a father in the home, say that motherfucker crazy. That's worse than not having no father. Say you got a father and mother in there and they're both drunks or drug addicts. You'd be better off in foster care because you are getting some dysfunctional as fuck habits and emotional anchors. I've seen this. I have dated a lot of women that are really fucked up who had both parents in the house. It is rare when I meet someone who had both parents and everyone is super cozy. And the reason is, and a lot of people are like, well, that ain't me. And the reason is, no one can validate what goes on in your house. And families have a tendency to tell a legacy and a story that benefits all involved. That's why when someone comes out with a Mommy Dearest book, people vilify because it's like, yeah, it's true, but that's your mother and you should have never said it. So don't think just because it's a 2-parent household, shit's going to be cozy if the parents are dysfunctional as fuck. I have seen a lot of wounded people come from that environment. So when you see the family photos on Facebook and everyone looks happy, know behind those smiles there's another story. There's some darkness sometimes. Sometimes those family photos, it's like that for real and everything is cozy. But understand, it's not always like that. Just like getting a degree, it's not always the sure path to a better life. So I want you to take these nuggets, take what I said, absorb it, listen to this a few times, and understand that you can become a competent, successful, financially successful, emotionally successful, and relationship-wise successful person through self-study, experimentation, and learning to accept the fact that you're going to fuck up in life. If you can get all that together, you can be in a hell of a person, regardless if you have a degree or not. So I'm just saying, don't let that hold you back. All right, this is Glendon Cameron, the American Hustler Podcast. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you on the good side.
Fatality.